So in this chapter, we're going to be talking about when we talked about valence electrons and the position on a periodic table. That was the previous two chapters. We're going to see how those two concepts help us understand the bonds that form between the different atoms. And so we're gonna the gain and the loss and the sharing of electrons determines whether these bonds are what we call ionic, covalent, or metallic. I want you to really be able to predict the type of bonds between two different elements and describe the probable properties of the substances that are formed when we have that particular type of bond. This chapter is really important since it kind of lays the foundation for chapters 7 through 9 and 13 through 19. And just to give you a heads up, 7 through 9, let me just double check. 7 through 9 is talking about bond theory and chemical composition and chemical calculations. And then chapter 13 through 19 is talking about, well, that's talking about chemical thermodynamics and kinetics and chemical equilibrium, acid bases, oxidation, all of those kinds of things are really dependent on the ideas that you learn here. So let's get into the meat of what you're talking about. We have basic bonds and the octet rule, and we're going to talk about covalent bonds versus ionic bonds versus metallic bonds. This section you're going to be learning about the Lewis dot structures. Yeah, those are really cool. And what else are we going to do? Properties of compounds. So basically the idea is the whole reason why we have the model of chemistry is so that we can predict things. We can kind of say, well, based off of the properties of these two elements or atoms coming together, they would be bonded like this. And if they're bonded like this, then they should have these kinds of properties as we boil them to certain temperatures, or as we try to break them apart, or as we try to keep them together. And we're able to kind of predict how something will behave. And then, so that's kind of the idea of what we're trying to do with this stuff. Remember how I described chemistry or science as the mathematics of nature. And essentially why we need that mathematics of nature is so that we can analyze exactly how nature will behave based off of our models and how we can predict them. So that's the idea that you're going to have to learn behind this bond theory. We are going to do a actual formal lab, and I think that this one's called electrical conductivity of several solutions. And so you're going to use something so that way you can kind of determine how electrically conductive a certain different solutions are for this lab.